Thank you so much for taking your time to speak with me today. It's truly honor to have you the opportunity to interview you, Master Joe.
I feel honored to have this opportunity myself.
Thank you. And first of all, congratulations on your outstanding achievement of the F5J World Championship in Argentina.
Thank you. That was surprising.
This marks your fourth World Championship title across the multiple soaring categories. How does that feel?
It's been an amazing ride. When I first started competing internationally, there was only one class, soaring class, F3B. And then I was 1991 was the first time I attended a world champs and became world champion in F3B. 1998, a new class came up, which is more oriented towards thermals, F3J. So I attended that one first time and became world champion again. That's pretty cool. And then roll on a little bit, 2011, hand launch. Finally became a world championship event. I've been flying hand launch since the beginning of hand launch when it was javelin throw. In fact, I attended the very first ever hand launch competition back in 1977 and became world champion then. Amazing. That's just absolutely amazing. And then F5J, which is even a better thermal class because it removes the athletic aspect since I'm getting old. So it's perfect for me. I've had a very fortunate run.
Okay, thank you. So, reflecting on your remarkable RC soaring career that spans over half a century, how do you view your journey?
I've always had a passion. When I was a little boy, I flew free flight, and then I think I was 14, and I saved for an entire year to buy a radio control unit, used radio control unit from the local hobby shop. And then I went off to go learn fly by myself. And the journey has been a wonderful one for me because I found my passion early in life.
I see. You had a perfect run at the F5J event, winning the both pre-competition Tango Cup and World Championship. It clearly demonstrates your capabilities. How would you describe the week overall?
It was a amazing week for me in that I was, for some reason, that field and me just worked well together, and I had a very high success rate in terms of picking air. So, like every time it's like thermal's over there, yes it is. Thermal's over there, yes it is. And I was consistent through the entire week. The only zero that I got during the preliminary rounds is actually not due to picking the poor air, but in fact turning off the transmitter while in flight.
Are you okay to confess that one in public?
Oh yes, oh yes. I own my mistakes. Yeah, we'll get a little bit into the benefits of owning your mistakes later.
Okay, so you said that consist to spot the thermal. How percentage do you think you could spot the thermal at the peak?
I was well above 90%.
90%.
Well above. I mean, well, Argentina's been good to me. I've visited Argentina 3 times, and I've now flown in 3 Tango Cups, and I have 3 first place Tango Cup trophies and a World Championship trophy. I like Argentina.
I see. Okay. And I would love to hear about the World Championship Flyoff. What was the most shining moment for you in the Flyoff?
It's hard to pick a shining moment. I appreciated the very first fly off in that I picked the spot that I wanted to go to. And I went there. There were 14 people in the fly offs. 13 people went right and downwind of the buildings and tents. and I went upwind of the buildings and tents, and just go out and I looked at the Alta's trace, and you could see the moment I hit the thermal, and that got popped up by 5 meters. So my launch height was 25 meters. If I'd been a bit better pilot, it would have been 20 meters to keep it down. And so 10 seconds after motor off, the airplane went up to, I think, almost 35 or 40 meters because it was still down at 20 meters. Yeah, but peak height was 25. And you can see that in the altitude trace. It's pretty cool. So I was cored in a very strong thermal all by myself. Wow. And everybody else was struggling downwind.
Wow.
So that one I was pretty happy about. And then the fourth round, which was after the wind had really come up strongly, and it was a 5 or 6 thermal flight, and multiple thermals, and the conditions were changing, so it wasn't just pure thermal. Some of it was a bit more corridor style flying, and you had to recognize when you did one versus the other. And so I ran all over the field. People that were watching from the sidelines said, most everybody else flew into the wind, and I'm going crosswind left, crosswind right. Whenever I could feel a wind shift that tells me I need to be over here, I did it. And so I actually made the time reasonably comfortably.
See, thank you. On the flip side, what was the most frustrating moment during the fly-off?
The most frustrating one was the third round. I actually probably was launching a bit too low for the conditions. And on the third round, I went forward left where I thought there was a thermal. And there were 3 people that went to the same location. They launched quite a bit higher than me. And I went underneath them and said, nope, that didn't work. So bugged off downwind, quartering downwind to a thermal that had blown through 40 seconds or 45 seconds before the start of the round. Connected, and it was a great thermal, and it's really climbing nice, and it's just drifting too far downwind. It's like, I can't see it anymore. I have to leave. That was the most frustrating part right there.
Yes. But did you make a flight?
No, I was about 4 minutes short because I left that thermal and it was just sank all the way back. So if I could have just stayed in that thermal for another minute or so, would have had an easy 15.
I see.
Oh, well.
How would you define a great flight?
A great flight is a flight that is done in difficult conditions, but you make it look easy. Now, if you have what I call a boring flight, where you connect with the thermal and you work the thermal and it feels easy. Well, it's like the last round of the Flyoffs. Of the 14 pilots, I think 2 pilots made full-time. And after the first 5 minutes, I was feeling not too uncomfortable. I was feeling pretty good compared to everybody else. I mean, there were a couple of people that launched over 200 meters that were down in 3 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's an intense condition.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you mentally and physically prepare for the World Championship?
Well, each class of World Championships has a different style of preparation. Like for F3B, you practice a lot of speed, you practice some distance. Those need to be practiced as a team to work well. And duration you practice on your own. But and then F3J have to practice the style of launch, and of course thermal and landing. F3K, air reading, it gets a little bit higher priority. Getting your body physically fit is extremely important. F5J, learning how to read air and what height to launch for the specific condition. So you go out there and practice a lot to find out what's the lower limit that you can get away with, and then realize that in the preliminary rounds, you have to fly for consistency. So, you pick a day and say, I'm practicing preliminary rounds, And okay, out of the 30 launches I might do in a day, I get one discard, and actually keep score so you can be honest with yourself.
You team up with Keith and Peter as Team New Zealand this time. How was the team?
The, the team was very good. I've been teaming with Kevin for a very long time, and it's he's been a great team partner for many years.
Could you talk about Keith's role as your caller and how that collaboration worked on during the event?
Kev has become a very important part of the team. He and I work very well together. He's learned what my needs are, which have changed over time. Used to be a little bit more of tell me what's going on behind me, where I can't see it, and it's a little bit more now of he understands exactly what I'm looking for, and sometimes we only focus on this part of the sky because that's all I can play with. And he's also become my backup set of eyes, because at the Worlds, on every flight that I had to fly any distance away, I'd probably lose the airplane at least 10 times a flight. And so he's like, it's over there, pull up, you turn right. And it's like, oh, got it, okay. And off I go, and a minute later I lose it again. So and so I have to fly much more closely, and Kev helps me out to keep the airplane still flying. But like I say, he understands exactly what I need, and he's very good at it. Without him, I would have not done nearly as well.
Wow. And also, I understand you were dealing with some visual limitation recently. How did you manage that challenge?
It just means I have to fly within my limitations. Good example is first Flyoff flight. Most people did it with one thermal. I was with the pack, thermaling, and pretty soon it's like, bye guys, I can't see my airplane anymore. I gotta go find another one. So I ended up using 3 thermals to make the flight. And most of the people just got very high and very far downwind on one thermal.
So you got to find the mini thermal during the one.
Yes, I have to be ever that much better at reading air and finding thermals.
Okay, so you hold World Championship title across different soaring classes, which suggests that there must be some common elements that have contributed to your remarkable success. What do you think those elements are?
Well, the obvious one is my talent for reading air. I've had that from a young age. Another one is my analytical mindset, which allows me to do make tactical decisions, adjust, and then strategic decisions and adjust quickly on the fly. And it's just like in the early days of F3B, my goal was not to fly the maximum number of laps. I could. The goal was to maximize the differential in the number of laps I flew compared to any other flyer in the sky. And in the early days, I would give up 2 laps to make sure that they got 4 less laps. So trying to maximize how to not only just get the 1,000, but to put the other teams down.
I see.
And so air reading, the tactics and strategy, and then keeping cool under pressure. Don't get nervous. Don't stress out. I might be nervous before the flight, but once it's time to fly, it's intense focus. And don't get distracted. Don't worry. Figure out and always try and re-optimize as conditions change.
I see. The reading air is the one of the most difficult skill. How did you develop that ability?
That is a good question. My theory as to how I developed it, because it happened so long ago, is the basics. The way I learned how to fly an RC sailplane, where I lived, there were hills nearby that were no houses, just brush and grass. I'd walk up to the top of the hill, throw my radio control glider down, and I'd glide down, land at the bottom of the hill, sometimes crash, mix 5-minute epoxy on a rock, stick the pieces back together, walk up, and fly again. And after about 3 months, I finally found my first thermal and climbed up. And I very quickly realized, you know, if I can pick my air, I can not have to walk down the hill. So you start learning about how to pick air. And so, walking up and down the hill when it's 35 or 38 C in summer, it's annoying. So I had a strong incentive from a very young age to learn how to read air.
And I'm surprised that it took 3 months for you to pick the first thermals.
Well, remember, much of the first attempts at flying, you're mostly learning how to control the airplane.
I see. Yes.
Yeah. So once you understand and it starts becoming reflexive to control the airplane, then you can start learning how to thermal. And until then, you're behind the airplane. You're spending so much of your brain power just trying to keep the wings, level, not too much airspeed, too little airspeed. So you're doing all your brain power on flying the airplane, and nothing left for is it going up in air. And it's also, it was on a hill with no wind typically. So you'd throw the airplane off and you get a 1-minute flight, 2-minute flight at most, and it's on the bottom of the hill. So not much flying time per hike.
Okay. So how often do you typically practice when you're preparing for the World Championship?
Oh, well, back when I was working full time, it was flying on the weekends, and then with F3K, it's really easy to go out and practice at short notice. You don't need a big field, so you can go out and sneak out and do a little bit of practice here and there. But I'd still say twice a week has been my usual routine for practice. And in fact, for F5J, for the last several weeks before we went to Argentina, we had bad weather. So in the last month, I probably went out 3 times.
I see. What are some common mistakes you see intermediate pilots makes?
Yeah, but there's a difference between the high-end competitive pilot has a lot of dedication. They practice with a purpose, practice with a goal, and many pilots just fly for fun. And it's hard to improve if you do not target first identify what your weaknesses are and practice to eliminate them. You have to be highly self-critical. And that's a hard thing to do. What did I do wrong? And in the early days, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. And so I was my own worst enemy, but that's how I got better.
I see. Not just to do the all-up last down for the day.
Yeah, well, hand launch, or at least the discus launch, came along pretty late in my career. But yeah, in the early days, it's okay. I'm a rough flyer. Let's practice flying more smoothly. Okay, I'm not catching the thermals correctly. I'm not centering up quickly. How do I do that better? How do I, and then the mysteries of having good equipment. That takes a little while to understand. You need reasonably good equipment to not have risk of things breaking, etc. But I jumped into competition flying early on. First real contest I went to was in 1977, U.S. Nationals. It was right after I got my driver's license, the first time I drove any distance away from home. And so fortunately, it was only about 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours away from where I lived, so I could drive out for a week of flying. And amazingly, I got a second place at the Nationals, so that was cool.
First time. But that one is you missed the the winning the game, compared with the other world championship, you missed the first place for the attending the game. You know what I mean?
Oh, but there was one flight where I'd actually broken a dihedral joiner, and I didn't have enough time to let the epoxy fully cure. So I put some tape on the bottom of the wing on the winch launch. I launched very, 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 very softly, so I didn't get much height.
Uh-huh.
So I dropped a little bit of time on that flight.
Okay. Okay, so then how would you rate the importance of the following aspects? Because setup, air rating, flying skill, strategy, and the rock on scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, well, yeah, the first prerequisite is you need flying skill.
Flying scale.
Yeah,
4.
that's the first prerequisite. Then you need to understand how to read air. And that's huge. Strategy is next, and I would put luck as last, but it is also or I should say, it's almost always a required element. You have to be both lucky and good to become a world championship or become a world champion. And I've had both good luck and bad luck at world champions medals. Yeah.
And your proverb is?
Huh?
Your proverb is?
Oh, I'd rather be lucky than good. I've used that phrase for more than a third of a century.
Okay. So you have inspired so many pilots around the world. Were there any mentor who influenced you in your early days?
I hesitate to use the word mentor because I was largely self-taught, but there was one pilot in the local club. I when I After about a year and a half of flying, I joined a club, San Fernando Valley Silent Flyers, that had many, many extremely talented pilots. But there was one, Rick Pearson, who, in my mind, understood the air best of all the pilots there. And he used to do a lot of hand launch with his 3-meter airplanes and catch thermals from low level. And it's like, he's the guy I want to try and be. Yeah. Not beat. The guy I want to learn how to do what he is doing.
See. So you have visited Japan many times. The first time we met was back in 2011 at the competition of the F3K, F3B, and F3J event.
Kamisato.
Kamisaro, yes. It was just a few months after the Fukushima nuclear accident, while many international celebrities canceled their visits to Japan. I remembered Lady Gaga, Justin Bieber, Cyndi Lauper, Tommy Lee Jones, and you still came. That meant a lot to us. And did you feel afraid to come to Japan at the time? And why didn't you cancel?
There's no need to cancel. I mean, we're here to fly. Share experiences, go forth and fly. And it was a really nice event that they ran for the Kamisato Cup. And I'd rather be there with Japan. I felt really badly when I saw the videos and footage of that day and all the destruction and carnage. My heart went out to Japan.
When was the first time visiting Japan?
I'm almost certain it's 1992, after I became the world champion for F3B in 91, and Samoa brought me out, and I toured many different locations in Japan, the Sendai, and I think probably 4 or 5 different regions in Japan, flying in the RC pageant, and flying with locals in different clubs. And it was a great experience. It was the second time I'd ever been out of the U.S. So the first time was to go to the World Champs in '91, and then second time was to go to Japan and
Wow.
experience a different culture, meet new friends. That was when Hasegawa-san was flying, and he was the person that took me around to many of these places. And it was really nice to meet the, you know, I understand he is the god of RC soaring in
In
Japan.
Japan, yes, he's a legend in Japan. Okay, and you also visited Japan in 1997 for the competition uh, that later became known as the Joe Wurts Cup in Japan, which is now the longest running hand launch glider contest in Japan. I believe your influence in Japan has been huge. Many pilots flying today learn from you.
Yes, that was an event that uh, Buzz uh, originated and invited me to come out to Japan. And in fact, at the first one, we did a thermal seminar on the field in the evening. And it's tough to talk about finding thermals when it's almost sunset. I remember one aspect of it. I'm sitting there talking to them about the third vector and how to read air, and all of a sudden the wind calmed down and pulled over, and it's like, hang on, thermal over there. Through, went up, and they're going, do that again. It's like, I cannot conjure thermals up. Thermals happen.
Okay. So that these days, not only Japan, you are playing an important role as an ambassador for the RC Soaring in all over the world. So seeing so many new people join the hobby, how does that make you feel?
Uh, well, I have gotten so much out of this hobby slash sport. You know, in the U.S., it's considered you're playing with toy airplanes. In Europe, it is considered a true sport. But after getting so much out of the hobby for myself, I have to give back. Well, in fact, 1993, how I found New Zealand, the New Zealand Soaring Committee invited me to come down and tour New Zealand and do lectures and seminars all over the country. So, that was a 3-week trip. 2 years later, they invited me back to do it again. And then 3 years after that, a third time. And by then, my wife and I kind of fell in love with the country.
I see.
So I've been doing lectures and seminars, and now I've done them all over the world: Argentina, Greece, here, there, yonder. Yeah. And my goal is to try and give back at least a portion of what I've gotten in enjoyment from this hobby.
So, are there still any personal goals or dreams you are pursuing?
I have overachieved. I have, no, 25 years ago, I had already met and exceeded the goals I had set as a young flyer. I could have never imagined what as a 20-year-old what I have achieved by the time now I'm 64, and then becoming world champion at 64. I'm a pensioner.
But there's a lot of the provisional class now. It's like F3L, F5L is getting better. Which class world championship title will you get for the next?
The question is whether those become an official world champion event before I go blind. Yeah, with my macular degeneration and other eye issues, my time is limited.
If you could give just one piece of advice to a young pilot who dream of become a world champion, what would it be?
Uh, follow your passion. With passion comes dedication, and with dedication comes skill. And don't always listen to somebody else. Figure it out for yourself. That's how I did it. In fact, when I first joined the San Fernando Valley Silent Flyers, I overheard one of the experts talking to another expert, and he said, I can't tell Joe anything. That's because I always wanted to figure it out myself.
Okay. Thank you again, Master Joe. It's truly been a pleasure speaking with you. Is there anything you would like to say your fans around the world?
Well, I'm, you know, I'm a very big fish in a very small pond. That's kind of cool. Again, I'm happy to share and try and help other people, and figure out what works for you. There are many very good pilots that don't fly contests. That's okay. Uh, find what brings you joy and do it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.